the landlords, a lot of them, they voted for him. Let's just say that. So you cut off Section 8 and housing assistance, you're affecting their pockets as much as you're affecting, if not more, because they still have to pay those mortgages, right? They still have to pay those bills, rather those checks are being sent to them or not. Black Americans will feel the brunt. And we're just going to go over a few ways, right? So we kind of talked about how we are disproportionate compared to our makeup of this country in the federal workforce. So Black Americans comprise of about 18% of federal workforce versus 12 to 13% of the US general population. And there are certain agencies that will be most affected that we also are overrepresented in. TSA, Veterans, the VA, HUD, USPS, and even though we didn't talk about the Postal Service yet, trust and believe there are strategies happening now on how to make cuts there. We saw what that man did the first time he was in office with the person he put in charge of the USPS. You know, they're planning to stifle votes for the midterms. You know, the USPS is one of the arms that they plan to use to do that. And so, yes, we over-index there. Also, many Black Americans tend to be sole breadwinners in multi-generational households. Our marriage numbers are horrible, right? The numbers of married two income households is trash. So if you are a woman taking care of a multi-generational house, meaning you're sandwiched in, you're taking care of your kids and possible parents, then, or if you are a grandparent who's now taking care of kids and grandchildren, but also working for the federal government with the hopes of retiring with a regular income paycheck or a regular paycheck, those are areas that are not as looking as rosy as they once did. There's a high concentration of people that will be affected probably in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, which also has a high cost of living. The federal employment concentration is one way that we're going to be hit the hardest, but just by sheer numbers. Also, our unfortunate dependency rates on subsidies like SNAP, like WIC, right? They say Social Security checks are not going to be affected or should not be affected. If it happens and it goes on for a long amount of time, then fingers crossed, right? I hope y'all can see that I'm crossing my fingers. But 1 in 4 Black children rely on either SNAP or WIC or both. Black families use SNAP at 2 times the rate of white families. So our food insecurity in our communities that rely on this will accelerate within days if that money is not paid out. WIC serves a high percentage of Black pregnant and postpartum mothers. Imagine about to have your baby in November, December, and you can no longer rely on what you've been relying on. Say what you want about it, whether you agree or not. That's just cruel. And there's no backup system when the federal funding runs out. There's not a backup system in place for any of these social programs. Housing assistance and Section 8 vulnerability. And let me just, listen, I have a tenant on Section 8. But look, not nervous at all, because the writing has been on the wall since we've been going over Project 2025. Me and my brother speak we spoke last week about it. Our plan is in place, child, but we ain't worried. We ain't scared. And I know some people are, but the crazy thing is, it's not just us that will be affected. So while we may over-index with collection of certain programs, disproportionately based on our size, the landlords, a lot of them, they voted for him. Let's just say that. So you cut off Section 8 and housing assistance, you're affecting their pockets as much as you're affecting, if not more, because they still have to pay those mortgages, right? They still have to pay those bills, rather those checks are being sent to them or not. The housing voucher program processing will stop. So if you're in the middle of it will freeze. New applications will also freeze. And Black families are 40% plus of the housing choice voucher recipients. 40% is a great number of all of the housing choice voucher recipients. What I should have done, and what I wish I would have done, how many owners are, what is the racial makeup of the owners of the homes that are being rented out via housing choice vouchers? I may do a part 2 to that. Landlords may threaten eviction when payment is delayed. That's a whole nother situation. Like, you got to go to court. You can threaten eviction, but now you got to pay. There's a process. Some places it may take you 6 months, a year to get somebody out. Some places it's quicker, but that's a whole nother process. Then you got to find somebody else. You got to redo your house, all of that stuff. We're on to number 4. Small businesses and federal contractors is a double hit. Black-owned businesses often rely on federal contracts. We already face barriers to traditional lending. Cash flow problems hit smaller businesses harder. We talked about cash flow yesterday during the RAIN Society. Cash flow was a big topic yesterday. No back pay means permanent losses for contractors and many Black-owned businesses. We over-index with businesses that are janitorial, security, and food services. Those will be the first cut. Now, the Department of State will also have some cuts, and that depending on how large the cuts are, because right now they have so many initiatives right now, stopping people from coming in, kicking people out. Like, there's so many things happening. We just don't know what those cuts will look like. Yeah, so we're going to go over the number 5. So number 1 was federal employees, the concentration of being 18% of the federal workforce that are automatically makes us more susceptible and makes us more impacted by a potential shutdown. The SNAP, the WIC, the dependency rates, as 1 in 4 Black children, we talked about that. Housing assistance and Section 8 vulnerability. We over-index with the housing choice voucher program. And then the small business and federal contractors that will be hit hard. And we over-index there too. Hit the like button if you haven't hit the like button yet. Subscribe to the channel to become part of the Gym Nation. We talk all things wellness, travel, and money, honey, from a cultural perspective, from a Black woman's point of view, with the goal to empower. But healthcare access through federal programs, we save that for last. Anyone who gets access through federal programs, there's a risk there. Community health centers serving Black communities face funding gaps. There's also Black Native Americans that will be affected as well. VA services for Black veterans. 24% of active duty military is Black. Currently, they're trying to get that number down too. We over-index in the military as well. So VA services. So while the VA will not be shut down, their funding will be impacted through a government shutdown. Medicaid application processing delays in certain states, and Medicare questions. If you have questions about sign up and all that other stuff, you better have patience. You better have patience. Yes, he sure did. Christine, yep. And let me say, yeah, Crystal, you're almost right. I'm not one to label, right? Because truth be told, yeah, there's a lot of Republicans, you're right, that want it to end. But there's also Republicans that are Republicans for one topic. Like, there are very religious people that simply do not believe in pro-choice. And they would never vote for someone pro-choice. I don't want to bucket all of them, but you're right. The ones that are making the laws, and especially the man who's trying to never leave office, or his administration to never leave office, you're right. If you miss the entire video where we also go over what to do should a shutdown happen, you can go ahead and click here to watch the whole thing. I advise you to watch it on faster speed because it was a very long live with lots of information shared.